Okay, so we're coming out of the 20, and then we can make a little bit of progress. Okay, let's see what we can see. We join the A5, I'm coming. See what fun and games we can have with the infamous cages. Here comes a bit of a bad sequence of junctions with bad visibility for everybody. Going for this car. See there, here comes another junction, nobody in that today. Classic junction for pulling out in front of motorbikes. The mountains looking great. So we're going to go onto the A5, or rather the A55. We're on the A5 at the moment, the old London to Dublin road effectively, terminating Holyhead for the ferries, and we'll get onto the A55, the dual carriageway built around about the 2001 or so. And straight ahead, pyramid peak of Eryri, Snowdon as they call it across the border. We prefer Welsh names in Wales for very obvious reasons. Who wouldn't? Here we go, a busy Monday lunchtime traffic, even in quiet old Wales. Very warm day today, in fact. Can't last much longer, but we've got a couple of more days of this to come, which is great. Here we go, see what happens at the junction. Not a lot today. Here we are, people waiting. Say hello to those. Now we're on to the A55. Over the shoulder check, nobody coming there, mirrors. all this stuff used to be tidal. You were able to use flat bottom boats to get up there to not far from the town of Anglesey. It was dammed off in the 19th century, and now it's slowly being kind of reflooded by the RSPB Nature Reserve. It's a great place for birds. We'll see how the old microphone puts up with all this wind noise. Pretty noisy in the helmet. We'll see how it works out. The old Versus is it's a great bike for dual carriageway and motorway driving. Gets up to motorway speeds barely without thinking, so it's great for that. Really good bike, and it's very light on the rural twisty roads as well. I'm not exactly the world's best twisty road driver, but we can cope. Up to a 50 here. Bit of grass cutting or something. Come across to the other carriageway in a second. Wave of the man or woman, who knows. Going down to 40 here, and keep an eye behind. Traffic takes absolutely no notice of road signs whatsoever, of course. With a bit of a tweak on the old mirror there. See a bit better? There we go. And the old mountains of Eryri coming into good view now. We've got the Carnedai range ahead of us. The Ogwen Valley on the right hand side as you're looking at it. Watch the speed here, 40. Kind of forget the speed limit for a little bit. There we go. There's enormous ranges of cones for a bit of grass cutting. Cones stay out for ages, put out by different people. Once the grass cutters are finished, the cones stay out there for days longer, which is really annoying. But there you go. That's how contracting and subcontracting works in this country, right? So here we go, the white van man, he's desperate to get somewhere behind me. Probably be creeping up, so he's a couple of feet behind, but there we go. That's part of the course, and British driving as well these days. We'll keep at 40, keep the workers happy. Coming out of it soon enough now. So we'll turn the corner here, and we'll be on to what will probably be a bit of a traffic queue waiting to get across the Britannia Bridge. The queue has become pretty much a semi-permanent feature of the bridge these days. Like everywhere, the roads are getting busier and busier, and the infrastructure gets older and older. And the Welsh Government has decided, in its wisdom, that it won't be building any new roads, which I guess is a good thing, because the new roads only attract more traffic. And in any case, there's no money. This A55 cost the taxpayer on a PPI scheme, public-private partnership scheme, I think it was initially £15 million a year, and it eventually grew to about 20-25 million a year in the last few years. Contract's just coming to an end this year, I think. And well, I guess it's in the lap of the gods as to what condition it'll be kept. A few bikes there, hello. We'll see what condition this road is kept in once it's back in fully public ownership. So here we go, we're coming on the last right hand corner, past the infamous Llanfairpwll Gwyngyll Gogerech Windrobwll Llantysilio Gogogoch. Say that after a few beers if you can. And leading in onto the Britannia Bridge, which doesn't look too busy. We usually have to do a bit of filtering, but it's pretty clear today actually. We're quite sure what that little deviation by me there was, but there we go, it happens. It gets very busy when the ferries come in. Occasionally you get two ferries arriving at the same time. Keep a good eye up the slip road, nothing there. Nobody behind on a terminating dual lane, which filters into a single lane. Causes all sorts of headaches, especially when you've got this slip road here, which everybody's desperate to get onto the main road as soon as possible. And rather than keeping the thing flowing, they just bring everything to a standstill. So that's us happily past that little slip road onto the Britannia Bridge, built in 1850. The might be able to see the old Telford Bridge of 1830 across the way there. And this bridge is notorious for people slowing down to rubberneck at the Menai Strait, which they can't really see very well from a car. Not a bad view from a bike. And in that short distance we're over onto the Welsh mainland, where the ground starts to rise fairly quickly into the hills of Snowdonia. With a bit of a hello to the bikes, with a bit of a twist. We're out to the 50. Looks like we might be able to do a bit of filtering on the way back. It's already getting quite busy on the other side. Hello, hello everybody. There's somebody in the outside lane who's kind of stuck there for a bit. Don't pull in because you've got a slip road coming up. We'll stay up here, there we go, they pull in and then they have to pull out again. Right, we'll slip past this lot. That's a goodbye to them. It's pretty windy up here now, so I'll just nick in behind this car and see how it goes. That's fast enough. It's handy to have the power to overtake and to get past people who don't seem to know what they're doing on the road. But otherwise it's 65-70 for me. It's perfectly adequate. There's somebody pulling some grass. Get out of their way. Oh no, looks like they're doing some maintenance work somewhere with some ground protection mats. There you go. The things you see on the A55. They're just coming up to the slip road onto Bethesda, which is where the Zip World zip wire is found. Runs over the old quarry of Penryn. Penryn, of course, lived in a castle just down the road off this slip road here. Rather obscene creation. He essentially reinvested money from the slave trade and made a killing out of stealing common land and making Welsh slaves out to the local people. He did rather well out of it, and well, the rest of us didn't. So there you go, that's the Welsh slave trade in a nutshell. And then we come on to around about another great place to catch. It's fast traffic coming off the A55 in the westbound direction. We don't want to stop on this slip road just ahead of us, give a good indication, keep a very good lookout, ready for moving out. And it's all quiet today, and this is a nice little roundabout. Catch you out quite easily with traffic that appears to be going in the opposite direction but actually comes out to join our direction. Nobody there again today, so it's pretty quiet. Shall we get past this guy? Maybe, maybe not. It's pretty slow. Let's go. Quite sure what he's doing, but there you go. So we're on the run up to Bethesda. Another beautifully biblically named place, of which there are very, very many across Wales, of course. Quite sure when these places acquired their biblical names. I guess it was at the time of the non-conformism movement. Whether they had any earlier names, I don't know. Oh, there we are. Somebody's saying there's a speed camera ahead. Half a bird in the road there. There we are. That's unfortunate. 40 miles an hour. We're doing 30. Here's a nice little bend here. We're beginning to have the start of a bit of a cold, very mild sniffles. So not on the best of conditions today, but certainly happy enough to be out on the road. Tomorrow, well, that's another day. Better keep to 40, I guess, otherwise it'll be a fine. Easy enough to reach 40 on these roads, going uphill slightly as we are. So Bethesda's a very well-known destination for you lot across the border. Come here for day trips and longer holidays for the zip wire. Very popular despite its expense. It's around about £100 per person for the main wire. Start off on a baby wire, it goes across the oldest part of the quarry, and then get in a truck, transported uphill, and well, life's in your hands as you come down a I don't know, it's about a half a mile long wire that descends. I don't know, it's got to be what, 1,000 feet, something like that. I don't know. The wife's been on it, the daughter's been on it, and the menfolk of the family, well, they haven't. We'll let you figure out who's the most sensible there, or who's the most well off anyway. Here we go. So we're looking out for doing 30, so we can pick that speed up a bit. 40 the limit. So we're looking for the what we call the Arrive Alive van still here. It was once called the Arrive Alive van, speed wagon. I forget what it's called now. It's called Stay Safe or something. Some nonsense that makes giving people £100 fine sound friendly. I guess it's needed. But there we go. So we're coming into 20. The cause of much shouting amongst those people who don't live in 20 zones, but otherwise it's quite well received and relatively well observed, or it was at least initially. Now it's beginning to slack off a bit. Here comes somebody on a bike, say hello to them. Nice day out with a bit of fluorescence. And keep to 20. I think you get prosecuted at, or at least you get the fine. So you get prosecuted unless you want to dispute it, which is probably a bit futile. Although there was a great story my old physics lecturer used to tell me, which was that in the early days of speed traps, I think it might have been Tomorrow's World, they pointed it at a milk float, a battery-powered milk float, which was doing as much as a milk float possibly can, maybe 10 miles an hour or something like that, and it was registering 100 miles an hour or so, because it was passing in front of some railings which happened to have the same kind of spacing as the microwave that were in use to detect the speed. Not sure if that's a true story or not. It's certainly plausible. Oh, you can hear some jets coming out of the Ogwen Valley there. They use a farm as a pretend bombing target after they've gone low level through the valley there. They go at very low altitude, around about a couple of hundred feet. I've done it myself in light aircraft actually, but you've got to wait for a completely calm day to do that, of which you don't get very many. Any sort of wind will throw a low inertia aircraft completely out of kilter. Quite dangerous because we get downdrafts in excess of 5,000 feet a minute, which is way beyond the climb rates of light aircraft. So there's only one way, and that's not the good way. Of course, the jet is a different matter altogether. And out on the right there, you probably can't make it out on the right angle, is the zip wire, the old Penryn quarry. In the 1850s, very early 1850, they dug a tunnel to drain the quarry. Howdy ho! They dug a quarry and it's a tunnel, I should say, and dug by Mormons is the story. We've done quite a lot of research on that, the wife and I, as to whether or not that's true. Certainly people who were Mormons arrived here to work from South Wales on their way to Liverpool to catch a ship across the Atlantic that took them to the east coast of America, where they then hitched up their wagons and took quite the most arduous journey across the American interior to Utah and Salt Lake City that anybody can imagine. There's a really good book about that journey, actually, regardless of what you might think about what was his name, John Smith or something, wasn't it? Adam Smith, I can't remember. Adam Smith, wasn't he the guy that went on about economics and division of labour? I think it was. But in any case, A. Smith, who was the so-called prophet who found the golden tablet somewhere, apparently, and everybody decided to follow him in that sort of very strange way that people do. But some very good book about the Welsh Mormons crossing the interior of the States. The hardships they had to put up with were quite incredible. Well worth the read if you look it out. But as far as we can tell, it wasn't Mormons that dug it, or there's no evidence at least that they were Mormons. They probably played a part. Maybe they did indeed dig it, but we couldn't find any paper evidence, and the Mormons have got better paper records than pretty much anybody on the planet, and they couldn't find any evidence either, so it remains unknown. So here we go, we're coming into Nant Francon, which is kind of collectively called Ogwen Valley. It's the River Ogwen that goes through it. And this is the bit the jets come hurtling down. You might see one or hear one at least. Probably won't see them, they go quite so quickly. We'll be sticking to around about 60 as we come into the Ogwen. And at the far end here, Very popular with tourists because of course it's right by the side of the road. So it's completely inundated by cars most of the time, especially since COVID. Everybody decided to get their Volkswagen vans for their van life, and they come here and do their van life thing. It's where Charles Darwin visited. In fact, I suppose he visited many places, Charles Darwin, didn't he? This is one of those places that he did visit, and one of the places he found marine mollusks, marine shells, which he was smart enough to realise had once lain at the bottom of the sea and had been uplifted by mountain building processes. So that's just up there. And it pays to be cautious on this road because, here we go, we'll straddle the double whites rather, or maybe not. That's Mr. Bike. It pays to be cautious on here because we can end up with two or even three major problems. First is people who are not used to roads like this, which are very many, coming on the wrong side of the road. That's always a danger on any bend, of course. Second one is probably most likely actually is sheep which have drifted onto the road. The final one, less common these days perhaps than it used to be, there's stones rolling down from above. You can't see it here, but the ground above me is pretty steep, full of ice fractured rock, scree. And that once did happen. My poor dad and his brand new Allegro, which he was very proud of. Howdy, mister. Taking my pram out, which he really didn't want to do. My dad really wasn't very keen on doing anything at all really other than fishing. But off he went in his brand new red Allegro with its plush Vela interior, leaking and burning oil as fast as British cars did. And lo and behold, in one of these corners up the Ogwen Valley, a rock rolled in front of us, smacked into it, full frontal with the oil sump, and much swearing and complaining ensued. I don't think it cracked the engine, but to be honest, with an Allegro, you probably wouldn't know the difference. And there we are, on the left hand side, maybe on the centre of your picture right now, is the mountain they call, on all the best YouTube videos, Trevan, or Truffen, or anything other than the real name, which is Trevan. It's Trevan, people, not Trevan, and not Truffen. And this is Llyn Ogwen, very shallow lake. I think it's the shallowest lake in Wales, actually. This one you can pretty much walk over it without losing your head under water. Certainly been more than halfway across it. Got bored after that. And here's so this is the main part where people come to park and go up Truffen. And the silly ones go up the north face of it, which is the one here. Quite often get stuck because they haven't got a clue what they're doing, or where they're going, or why they're doing it. And the sensible ones, well, they go up the south side, which is infinitely easier. If you're going up there, people, and you're not really a mountaineer, go up the south side. And that side of the mountain will be just on the other side of the lake. Fun on Lloer, the source of the river known as the River of the Moon, Lloer, where the old druids used to stare at the reflection of the moon in the water. Part of their watery-based religion. See a bike coming up behind, he's probably going to overtake me and find me a real old man, but there you go, comes with age. But that's a nice walk. It's very boggy at times, especially recently. It's been raining a lot this summer. That's the old mountain rescue place on that side. Keep an eye on the corner as we come in. A couple of series of corners that need a bit of concentration. right side of the road. Here we go. So that's a nice walk up to Funnel Side. Probably know it is. Quite a steep start. It's quite short. It's only about half a mile of a walk, but it goes up several hundred metres. Great view of Trevan. It's Trevan, people, remember? Trevan. If you remember nothing else from the video, just remember that. Yeah, the motorbike's behind me, and he wants to get past. They all get past me, I'm just an old kid. Seems to have a Ducati according to his leathers. He wants to watch it because we don't know where the Arrive Alive van's gone to. Could be down here in a nice straight stretch coming up where everybody tears along. So let's not spoil the day with a speeding ticket. Looks like we're in the clear for the next half a mile or so. Great day today, really great day. And a day where I feel like not coming off, really. Well, I mean, who wants to come off the bike, but, you know, in the right way, I mean. I'm quite sure we're all stopped today, to be honest. I've only had a bit of a soup for lunch, so I might stop somewhere, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. It's a bit of a strange corner, that one. It's an easy corner to take, but it's got firm grit on it. We'd rather not slide. This road's getting a bit naff as well. It used to be quite good condition. It's slowly breaking up. Yeah, they are. Everybody's out today. Howdy ho. And another. Who knows if they wave back or nod back? I never really see it. But at least we do. Here come another lot. Well, I guess we're all retired and yeah, a bit grumpy. I suppose they've all just bought their GS 1250s or something, haven't they? I don't know. They're too posh, too modern to wave at me. Hey. So that's us done through the main body of Eryri, or Snowdonia as you lot across the border call it. That's the main width of it really. It's quite a narrow range. It's only about, I don't know, 8 or 10 kilometres wide really, the highest bits anyway. So we're working down to Capelcurig, or Capelcurig, as our visitor friends will call it. Famous for having some pretty wild wind readings on the Met Office weather forecast. I'm quite sure where the weather station is. It's down here somewhere, but it often has extremely high wind speeds, probably coming down the valley. And Urwitvan, or Snowdon, is on the road coming up on my right hand side in a minute. And as part of the course we've got a somewhat impatient Audi behind us. Not quite sure where he's going in a 40-mile zone. 30's perfectly adequate for this corner with its multiple inputs of cars possibly, but there we are. Pretty quiet day today altogether. So I'm going to give it a rest for a second and switch off for a second. Here we go. Maybe if I can manage it, that is. I'm not sure if I can actually. I'll keep it going. It's a bit insensitive with the gloves. Maybe we'll got about 2 hours on this camera and the battery apparently, and the card, which is 64 gigabytes. Which always strikes me as amazing, given that I remember the days when you could barely fit one image on a 1.44 megabyte floppy disk. and even earlier than that. Much less on a 5 1/4 inch disc. Before then, even less on a bigger disc. But those days are gone, right? So now we're essentially reproducing the whole reality on an SD card. Do you know what? I think I'm prattling now. So here we go. This is Eryri, 30-mile-an-hour zone. Got a bit of redevelopment of these Victorian hotels going on. They're obviously doing quite well out of the resurgence of tourism. How long it'll last for is another thing. Reports from friends I've got in places like Pwllheli, which is a popular tourist destination as well down on the Llyn Peninsula, the north of the Llyn Peninsula. People are packing their bags, selling up, selling their boats, and going back to having holidays abroad. That's the news anyway. I guess it was kind of inevitable, especially after a very wet, very wet summer that we've had this year. It kind of reminded everybody of why they never came to Wales on holidays in the first place. But there you go. The alternative is, I suppose, that you can go on holiday to a country that's on fire, which seems to be the common case in Spain, Portugal, Greece, you name it these days. Well, somehow seem to have found myself much further than I hoped, planned to go today. But why not? Both kids are off to university now. One of them's got COVID apparently already. Well, that happens when people come together from across the world, of course. And howdy ho, everybody. Grumpy Sods alert. And yeah, so they've got COVID, but they're okay. But time's my own. No rush to get back anywhere. 1:20, very quiet in the campsite now. Everybody's back at work, of course. And, so we might go to the place known as Blaenau Festiniog. It's a place I go to quite often. It's got a nice road going to it. The A470, which is the main road from north to South Wales. It's strangely busy now, whereas once it was fairly quiet. The Welsh Government decided in their wisdom that they were going to slowly improve the A470 in sections, so that I guess that there wouldn't be too much protest about improving roads and widening them or working on them through the national park. They did it in sections quietly, without any protest whatsoever. Now they run out of money, and rather not doing anything to improve anything at all. They can barely even repair things these days. There we go. Yeah, lots of bikes. This is probably the busiest day I've seen of bikes for a long while. It's some good weather recently. It's certainly the busiest day I've seen. Okay folks, I'm gonna possibly pull in here to stop the camera because there's nothing much to see for the next little while. There we go. It's coming through. Okay, check we've got everything, which is always a danger with me. Forget everything. There we go. So it's goodbye to Couple Keurig area. And down the road towards the Wyddfa, which you can see in the distance there, otherwise known as Snowdon. So off we go. Very calm day, practically no wind at all. Very unusual for North Wales, of course. Somebody with his... oh, I've forgotten to put my fluorescent on, but that's alright. Thank you very much. Look out for the tourists. The trouble here is the tourists pull out, they're on holiday, they don't care. They live in a different reality to the rest of us. Here we are, keep to the speed limit. Near as we can. Nice place to camp up there. Under the BDI of the local farmer, keep you under control. We don't like a lot of shouting around here, we like people to keep quiet at the night time. Improves their enjoyment and ours. And out on that side over there is a fossilized beach, believe it or not. It's about 500 million years old, and it looks just as though it will lay down on the last tide. Big sand ripples now turned into stone. There's a few outcrops of those throughout the area. It's pretty quiet around. This road is never really very busy, despite the tourism. But it is a nice road. Watch the speed. Corners are nice and sweeping, nothing very difficult at all about these. Even I can manage them. Quite noticeable how much cooler it is without the fluorescent over jacket, actually, on a day like this. And there's Eryri, the peak, the Snowdon peak, right in front of us now. And I guess it's going to be a pretty busy day up there today. Here come our friends on the bikes. Here's one of the more challenging corners on this section, such as it is. Flick around, not quite with it today. I've got a bit of an incipient cold. Makes a big difference to how relaxed you are on a bike. I was going to stop there, but it's a bit of a... I'll stop here instead. A bit of a big ask on the gravelly section of a lay-by. Discretion is always the better part of valor. Just stop here for a second. Back with you shortly. Okie dokie, after a bit of a short break to put the old fluorescent jacket on there, we're going to go and make our way up Canberra's Pass. There we go. So I do tend to wear a fluorescent jacket. It's one of those with a diagonal zip on it, which means it doesn't flap around all over the place like a conventional builder's one does. And although you look a bit of a wally in one, the simple fact of the matter is people notice you an awful lot sooner. And although hello, here are our friends the sheep. They can be found at random at any particular location. in the mountains or beyond. They're behaving themselves on a bit of spare ground today. Yeah, the biggest difference I find in terms of being seen with a motorbike is how big your bike is. On something like a Versys like this, you're sitting nice and high. You've got a dominating view of the road. People see you coming from quite a distance away. Your bike is big. There we go. Hello. Keeping an eye side of the road. That would help. So the bike makes a big difference compared to the 500 I had before, the CB 500 I had before this. The difference is night and day. People do take a lot of notice of a big bike, it's for sure. That's a hard task for anybody going up this hill on a bike. Thank you. That's for you, not me. It's Creep Goch just on the left hand side there. Can't see much of it actually, but a very famous ridge. A very exposed ridge. Often with queues on it actually, peak tourist season. And apart from the large bike, the second thing that gets you noticed is the fluorescent jacket. People are generally not looking at what they're doing, and when they glance in a mirror, they're just looking ahead. They see a fluorescent jacket and they will tend to assume that you're a police bike. That's not my aim, but if it serves the purpose of being seen sooner and making people behave a little bit better than they otherwise would, well, that's perfectly fine with me. Nobody looks good hurtling along the road because a car hasn't seen you. A big bike, fluorescent jacket, they get you seen, and there's no doubt that that's important when you're riding a bike. So that's why I go around looking a bit like a wally. There they come. Well, I used to do this when I was young. I can't say it was easy, but I did used to do it. When I say used, I mean I did it once or twice, possibly even once. Yeah, well, this road's pretty safe. It doesn't tend to suffer from sheep so much. The lower stretches do even. Oh, well, just as soon as I say that, somebody's gone through the wall in a car by the looks of it. Well, you get them. Walls falling down, they're a bit of a hazard on this road sometimes, especially in the winter. Increased rainfall and these largely dry stone walls. They are beginning to tumble as the weather gets wetter with climate change. As you can see, the corners are not exactly anything to write home about, although of course the one that gets you is the one you least expect. So, cracking mountain scenery around here. Well, I hope the camera angle's okay. It looked okay when I had a quick preview, but I haven't had a detailed look at it. But hey, who cares? I'm sure you can see most of it. And here's a nice little corner over a bridge. This road hasn't changed. Well, I don't know, in a very long time, since a route was created as the original pass. The thing that just changed. The grandfather painted a picture of that bridge far over 100 years ago, I guess, and it looks exactly the same now. And I had thought of taking some photos here because there's some nice sheepfolds which I like taking photographs of because they're not very well documented in the historical record. People say they're not very important, but I think they are. Will they stop here? Possibly. With a bit of shadow, probably a bit late in the year now. Yeah, keep an eye on the road as well. I felt a bit queasy when I stopped at the far end of this little sojourn earlier when I got to the ugly house outside Pettersacoid. Betusticoid, as our English friends call it. I was a bit dizzy. I didn't sleep very well last night either, which is always a good sign of a viral infection with me. So I decided it was probably best for me to be heading back in the direction of home rather than away from it today. Although it's a lovely day, I should have planned to go for a long walk really. Ah, it's okay, I'm out on the bike. It's a close second, isn't it? And this section of road tends to suffer from sheep incursion, so we'll look out for that. There's a 30 anyway. Pretty sure the camera's a little bit high, but hey. This road's also got some nasty holes in it, especially on the other side. So I have to always look out for them. Well, the good news is that the audio seems to be working alright. Or at least the levels are. What I'm actually conveying to you by the audio, well, the quality, that's for you to judge. But we do our best and we try and do a little bit of a tourist guide show without getting too bogged down in tourist-esque talk. And just coming into view here is the truly monumental remains of, or the leftovers of, the Eryri slate quarry, once the second largest in the world, just across the valley from, just across the bridge I should say, from Penryn. Walk between the two quite easily in an hour or so, less than that probably. And good quality slate. Quarrying came to an end here in the 1960s, 1969 I think. It was 20, we should slow down a little bit, very easy to forget. It seems to be a sensible speed, but it is over 20, so there we go. And yeah, there was no underground activity as such. There was some tunnelling to get through to various workings, but there was no underground working here. Nor was there at Penryn, although there were some underground workings through which slate was brought up to the surface by water balances and stuff like that. But quite an impressive place to go for a walk. There's not an awful lot to see, particularly good place for photography, I guess. A lot of damage caused since COVID by over-tourism. A lot of damage. It's a great shame. There are some barracks and mill buildings and what have you, which still had quarrymen's coats and boots hanging up on the wall, and the boots parked beneath wooden benches. But that's all been trashed, when otherwise they were sacred and had been for decades. And that's the kind of thing that, if you're watching this as a potential tourist to the area, I'd like you to take a great note of, is that we don't want our heritage trashed in the name of making a campfire, or making a video, or just playing silly buggers really. We just don't want that. Nobody does. So please respect our heritage and enjoy it. Keep it in a good condition. Now, I tend to come around this corner rather more gingerly than I ought to. I don't know why. We've got a couple of holes in the middle really, but anyway, from here on it's perfectly fine. And then you might see coming up here on the right hand side the tail race of the Eryri power station. There we are. Concrete bridge structure which you might be able to see. And there's a lake at the top. And every time you come home from work at 5 o'clock, the Eryri fires up, and within 10 seconds it's at full power. I think its output is about 5 gigawatts, I think. I can't remember actually. Check it up easily enough, can't you, these days? The turbines spin in air, when they're not in use, and then as soon as they get the command from National Grid headquarters, the gates open, water rushes down from several hundred metres above, and the cookers keep working. There we go, here's some sheep. Yeah, they're all used to comings and goings here. And quite often do a bit of shepherding with the bike, get them back into where they should be. There's a roundabout that comes from nowhere. And we're just going to come past the Snowdon Mountain Railway on the left hand side here now. It's probably going to be quite busy, I imagine, even though it's at school term time. It's fairly busy. At least they're going to see something from the top today, which is quite often not the case. So this is Llanberis, a tourist honeypot, if ever there was one. And the base for walking up with the van of Snowdon, or taking the train up, which is probably the most sensible way. I took my daughter up to the summit in the evening 3 weeks ago, something like that, before she went off to university. She'd never been up there. It's a bit of a slog, to be honest. It's about 5 miles up and 5 miles down, of course, which is quite often the hard bit if you've got any bad knees, bad ankles, bad anything. And the very good thing about being out in the mountains these days, which didn't used to be the case when I was a youngster, is that we get people from ethnic backgrounds coming in droves now, which is great to see, because I remember studying this phenomenon that people of ethnic backgrounds didn't feel that they had any identity or belonged, or perhaps were even welcomed in an area like this, whether it's in Wales or England or wherever. But now they come in droves, which is great for people like me who like to stop and have a bit of a chat, because I find the ethnic background people tend to stop and talk quite enthusiastically, whereas your typical average white Brit these days doesn't seem to want to. Bit of a wild generalisation, obviously, but it tends to follow that kind of pattern. And again, on stopping, I feel a little bit queasy, but not too bad. Combination with being a little bit thirsty and quite warm. Careful to keep hydrated on a day like this. So we'll head back through along the Llanberis Lane. There we go. We've got some big works going on here. Been going on seemingly forever, but actually for about 2.5 years or so, where they're installing new cabling for a new hydro scheme that, howdy ho, for a new hydro scheme that's going to operate within some old quarry on my left here, which you can't see, causing all sorts of traffic mayhem for the past 2.5 years. So with a little bit of luck, that's coming to an end now, and they'll get the infrastructure installed and we'll have a bit more hydro in the area. I suppose it's a good use of the old quarries. And on the left here is the entrance to what used to be an RAF bomb store. A very, very poorly built, very rapidly built reinforced concrete building, part of which collapsed just as soon as they'd built it, actually. So half of it is essentially missing, and they had a train track running into it. Covered train tracks that they could offload and load without being seen from above. Quite a spooky sort of place. It's got something of the concentration camp feel about it. Bit of a risk to go in there these days, but it's worth having a look. But there are plenty of photographs which mean that you don't have to if you're not given to going into such places or risking your life even these days. There's no doubt that these places are collapsing. We go into underground slate mines in the area, quite keen on that, with the big torches. and you think everything's fine until it isn't, and you get collapses, which happen especially after heavy rainfall. You know, you kind of hope that it isn't going to be you, but one day it might be. So keep that in mind when you're going into ground, and always take head protection. Don't go in there on a whim. Take a decent climbing helmet, or even a builder's helmet, because the last person that died in one of these quarries in Plain Fistiniog did so on account of a small piece of the roof, like the size of a coin, falling on his head. You have to remember it's falling from the height of about more than 50 feet, and by the time it gets to your head at the bottom, that can often be lethal. I really could do with some drink. And, I might pull up at a garage, actually get a drink or something. So this is the boring bit, which we'll switch off for a while, so we'll see you in a bit. Okay folks, welcome back. I just had a cheese and onion sandwich, the cheapest I can get, although £2.29 is not very cheap by my book. And a bit of a drink, and now I feel a lot better. Don't feel as queasy as I did. So we're just about to come back onto day 55 in a couple of minutes. I'm just coming up to Veinal Hall, which is where Bryn Terfel used to sing his heart out in days of old. They don't do it anymore, I don't believe. And certain concerts that we used to have here, that we used to be able to work our way into for free, of course. Once, in my case, to find my car locked into a car park, but I managed to slip underneath it anyway, underneath the chain anyway, so there you go. Okay, so quick word before we get to day 55 of what equipment I use, because I had no idea what other people were using, nor the patience to find out really. It's a DJI Osmo 3 camera. I've got the Osmo 3 because, well, it's cheaper than the Osmo 4. That's always good. And I've heard some reports of the Osmo 4 getting overheated. I'm sure that's not as much of a problem as people make out, but even so, this camera gives me very good pictures, nice stabilisation, and a great price. The microphone I've got attached to it is a very, very generic Chinese small condenser mic, and that's got a standard phono type connector, 3.5mm jack, and that goes into a very, very generic eBay 3.5 to USB-C adapter. There are plenty of people on eBay will tell you that don't bother with those adapters, they don't work. None of them work, they'll even claim. Howdy ho. But well, mine worked the first time. It cost me about £2 or something. So you see the general theme of this channel is cheapness. Part of course from the expensive Kawasaki. Howdy ho again. Lots of bikes out today. Don't blame them really. It was quite a nice day yesterday, but it was really windy. Actually not yesterday, it was rainy, it was the day before. It was nice but very windy, and that's often not very pleasant on a bike. Certainly not very pleasant going over the bridge that we're about to, the Bridge of Britannia, which has got terrible wind exposure. Behind, there we are. Okay, so we're on the slip rope back onto the A55, and this time in the westward direction, the Holyhead direction, or the Dublin direction if you're catching the ferry later on. 21 miles then. Nobody coming. Back on 50 miles an hour at this stage. Here we are, 52. That's not too bad, is it? The Gester. No filtering today. British Gas man's a bit impatient. We don't know why. Yeah, filtering is usually needed on this section. The old 2-into-1 problem. And people also tend not to move aside on this road because there's plenty of room for them to move aside. Motorbikes can lawfully pass so long as they don't go over that a white line, as we'll do just now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sensible sort of person. This guy, he's too busy looking at the Menai Strait in his Nazi wagon. There we go. And in just a few seconds we can get rid of him. There we go. Off we go. 50 miles an hour on this bit though. Noise restriction. And those of you who come on holiday here will recognise this turn off as the one that you nearly miss, or do miss, on the way to sunny Bentlech, otherwise known to our English friends as Benkluk. And Amlwch, which is further north, otherwise known as Amlwch, to those of a linguistically challenged nature. There goes British Gas man, he's got to be somewhere by a certain time. Maybe British Gas would like to get the drivers to slow down a bit and keep a bit of a distance between vans and motorcycles. It's always nice when you do. Thanks very much, British Gas. So off we go. Got a bike ahead, doing a reasonable kind of speed. Catch up with him in a bit maybe. Nobody behind, getting ready for an overtake probably. Maybe not, we'll see. It's a little bit on the slow side, just a little bit beneath 70. There we go, we'll just pull up beside him as it were. Saying hello. There he goes, he's a happy chappy, or a happy girly, who knows. Yeah, so that's pretty much the video setup. DJI Osmo 3, USB to 3.5 generic, very cheap eBay adapter, and a very generic cheap microphone, which just clips onto the inside of the helmet here. The mount for the camera, by the way, I'm just using a new one today. It's well, I won't advertise it because I can't actually remember his name anyway, but I'm sure there are more than one available, more than one type available. It's one of those sort of large clamp type that are easy to pull off. Slightly less prone, slightly more prone I should say, to moving a little bit perhaps, but it hasn't moved in this journey, so it's fine. But the very cheap strap ones that you get on eBay, the one with a sort of blue surround, the triangular ones, they're very cheap and they're very good as well. As long as you tighten them up properly, they're fine. The only thing is that the straps, unless you trim them a bit, they flap around. You can always put a bit of Velcro and stick them down or something. I don't know, but they did get in the way before I got around to trimming them, and I've changed to this clamp type anyway. So yeah, it's very good, very simple. I don't do sponsored stuff because well, I doubt I've got any viewers, let alone subscribers, or anybody who wants to give me money for reviewing stuff. If I ever do that kind of stuff, it'll be honest opinions only. There certainly won't be any endorsements if they don't deserve it. But feel free if you're confident of your equipment. I prefer, obviously, financial support to sending me loads of stuff through my letterbox that I don't really need in the end. That only stands to reason. It costs money to keep a bike going, especially an 1100cc one. But this one's good. I get about just slightly over 55 miles per gallon as a long-term average. The CB500 I had before was doing in excess of 80 miles per gallon, which is excellent, but although it was capable of holding its own on a dual carriageway or a motorway, it wasn't that happy. It was revving a little bit more than perhaps was comfortable on the wind. It was a little bit of an irksome thing to cope with. Although there's a bit of noise in the helmet on this Kawasaki, there's no buffeting really. Windscreen does a great job. And so that's pretty much it. Last leg really on the way home. Not an awful lot to see from this bit. So bear with me as I make my journey and moto vlogging. I don't really like video stuff, but motor vlogging seems to be a worthwhile pursuit, and hopefully it'll encourage you to get out and do a little bit of biking. I'm by no means the world's best motorcyclist, as you probably noticed if you watch closely on this video, but I do my best. I have been driving for about 30 years before my daughter got into it, and I thought I'd accompany her to keep her safe. And it's come along quite nicely in that year. Perfectly happy to bomb along on this Kawasaki, which is very easy to ride, I have to say. It's got a lovely centre of gravity, great stability at low speed. You can keep it balanced even when standing still for a while before you have to give up and put your foot down. So it's very good from that point of view. Really confidence inspiring. And there you go again. I'm feeling a little bit queasy again, so that old virus is getting the better of me. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We come to the last few seconds of the roundabout. We'll keep it rolling, maybe a bit of music or something towards the end as we go through the final good corners. And we'll see you in the next one. Hopefully the weather will keep good. Maybe we'll be out as soon as tomorrow. After that is anybody's guess. A bit like that guy's indicating. So see you next time.